Okay team, last time we learned how to do basic shapes using the shape filler shape tool over here and selecting the shapes and filling them using color using the color wheel. Remember you can change from the sliders to color wheel using that little icon up there. We also learned to use solid fill, linear fill and radial fill using the gradient fill tool there. And again, everything you select along the side changes up the top. So in this case, that one's linear and you can change it, etc. Then we drew some 5 other shapes, copied and pasted them, and adapted each shape using the node tool. So the pick tool, the black arrow, means you can select things, resize them, move them around. The node tool means you can select them and you end up with all these possible options for moving things around with these dots. Okay, there's a lot more to come from the node tool which you'll learn today. Which today's task is going to be looking at lettering. Now lettering, if you look at this page here, we're going to have a go doing our name, and you can see how this is quite similar to what you're doing. This is the sort of page you're building up towards, and then you'll print it out and stick it in your jotter. But also from using the booklet, the S12 booklet, there is page 2 where it talks through all the different approaches to getting good text. We would start with our name, changing the font, able to change what the text says, able to change each letter around so it's all in a different position, colouring the lettering and giving it an outline, taking one of your original text, so that one, copying it down to here, making copies and making it look like it's got shadow. That's one method of doing shadow, but there's other methods using the effects tool that we're going to work our way through today. So first of all, let's deselect that. Just click on a bit of white space, use the pick tool, nothing is selected and it's all good. Remember, we use the mouse wheel to zoom in and out, and if we use the mouse wheel when we push it down, we can drag up, and we want a fresh space. So if we want to add anything onto here, it's going to be using the tools over here. And there you can see a T within a box, and that is a frame text. That's for when you want to do text like a Word document and so on. And there is artistic text, and you use artistic text when you want to do titles, etc. And that's what we're going to learn to do today. So select that, drag out a letter, not big, and type your name. Easy, we can all do that. And then select your name. Okay, so now that is one piece of lettering, and you want it fairly small. You don't want it massive. Okay, and we want to zoom in as well because we're going to do a few copies. First thing is, how do we make a copy? Or we know how to make a copy actually. Just hold the control key down and select and you get another one. Then with that copy, change the font. Change it to something funky but chunky. Let's call it chunky funky, shall we? Right, there's Berlin Sans. That's quite good. If you're deciding between fonts, you can make another copy, move it to the side, and then with that copy, select, and you'll notice Affinity has hundreds of fonts. Look at them, there's tons and tons and tons. So Impact is quite big. You got that Harlow one, I like that, so I'm going to select that and make another copy until I get the font that I think, right, that's the one I'm going to use today. And just keep working your way through. No, you can see the S and the I are a bit too confusing there. I do like that, but not as much as the last one that I've got. Keep working my way through. Playbill's good, it's like a kind of Western musical style of font. But no, I made my mind up. I'm going to stick with this one. So I'm going to deselect, go to my pick tool, delete that one, select this one and move it over. So we now know how to change the font. We can change the size of it just by dragging it out, and every time you change the size of it, it changes up here. So if you want an official font size, you would type it in. So say for example 48 and brings it down to that. Next step, once you've got your name, you've changed the font to something you like, you can double click on it and you can enter more text, Mr. Amazing Simpson. There you go. But I think that's slightly exaggerated. So we'll just go back and I'll just leave it Mr. Simpson. But that's how you change the text. So let's say you made a spelling mistake. Then you can click anywhere and change the letter. Let's say you forgot to do a capital for your S. You can go back in and change it. So it works just like you would with Word. The next step, select it again. Make another copy. Okay. And this time we are going to do something called convert to curves. So you got it selected, there it is there, and you look all the way along the top for a box that says convert to curves. There it's there. Now it looks like nothing's happened, but if I deselect now, if I just come off that and then select and then double click, there is the individual letter. It has taken every letter and separated them. So now what I can do is I can really play around with how this looks. And this is where sometimes it's better to take snap off, because I can move it around. I can then get that looking a bit like that. I'm going to take the P, have it in line with there. That S, I'm going to bring it down and into there, but I'm going to leave a little gap. Drag over, get my O as well, and N. But you can do all sorts of really strange, interesting stuff using this tool, but as you can see, that I'm quite liking the look of that. You'll notice sometimes when you select things, it's got this sticky up handle. 3 guesses, what that does, you see how you go hover over it and it's got like a pendulum arrow? Well, it can rotate. So you can actually turn it till that bit's horizontal. I can move that in there like that now. I can take the P or another letter. You know what? I'm going to keep with it as it is, but you can rotate letters. Anything you want to do, use Control Z, Control Z again. There we go, and that's it. So we've got all our letters again. I can select and I can draw a box around them all, and because they're all separate, I can group them back together again. So there we go. Next step is take how you've adapted it and fill it in with colour. So there we go, I've gone for a yellow. We're inside yellow, I want to bring it down to pure yellow out there, or I can come to the very outside and get a colour that I quite like. Today I feel it's a kind of purple kind of day. Something else that's new now, and you can do this with your other shapes as well, but you tend not to do it with shapes because you just want shapes to have a plain thing like that. You don't want them to have outlines. But what you can do with your text is give it an outline. So there's my inside colour, there's my line colour. And the line currently has no colour. But if I get back around to purple and I make it quite dark, nothing really has happened. Even if if you zoom in, you can just see it a little bit, okay? But what we want to do is go to the stroke tab, and now we can really increase it. But there's a point at which it looks stupid and a point where it looks good. That looks good. And that will do for that one. I'm going to select this once more and make a copy of that one. And now this time what I'm going to do is go to use the layer effects. Now these are really special. This is going to have the most bestest effect out of everything that you've worked with. So you go up to layer and there's layer effects down the very bottom. There's a quick way to get to the layer effects. So if I unselect that, in your layers tab, see where it says effects? There we go, click that and you get this box coming up, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that text, but first of all, I'm going to choose a color that I like. Oops, that's a line color. So I'm going to take that and give it no line. And the inside color, which is currently black, I quite like blue. So I'm going to come up to blue. And I'm wanting a variety of colors anyway. Right, let's zoom in. Get that dragged over to there. So what does all this do? If I go to outline here and tick it, now whereas before when you thickened up the outline it made some of the letters look rubbish, this time when you use outline, so you have to select it there and there, because if I select here, you'll see I'm still in outline mode, but all of the 3D effects have come up, so I need that there. Okay, right, and if I drag, and you just need to play around and find out what each of these things do. If I drag that out, see what happens. Now it keeps all of the letters the same size, and what it does is it adds an outline that just thickens up. And if you look at some sweetie wrappers like a Twix, this is a common way of actually creating an outline. That is quite effective. So that's one method. I'm going to turn that one off, but if I turned it back on, it remembers what the settings were. If I go down to outer shadow and tick it, what do all these things do? What does radius do? Oh, you can see it getting a wee bit faint. What does offset do? There we go, it adds a shadow. Now shadows can look good, but they can also look rubbish. If it's too far away, it looks rubbish. If you get it just the right distance away, it looks really effective. And then you can play around with the other bits. So radius, what does that do? It kind of, now you can see it fades it like a proper shadow. So that's quite effective. What does the intensity do? Not too much. I'm preferring zero intensity. And what about the color? The color, you can play around with the color of your shadow, as you can see. So we can give it a green. If we had a green background, we can give it a dark green. So you can really bring it down and over to something like that there. Doesn't work quite as effectively, but you get the gist of it. So that's the color for that bit. Okay, and if I untick that this time, and last but not least, we'll go for 3D. These are enough effects for you to play around with. So I'm going to tick it off. And did you see, if we look closely, how the corners have rounded? And it's added highlights and shadows. Well, the direction of the light is coming from the top left. If I drag that over to the other side, the light is coming from the top left instead of the top right, and the shadows are on the bottom right. That tends to be the most common way. If I move this more towards the middle, it's as if the light is shining directly down on top. If we move it over to the edge, it's more angled, and that's definitely more effective. So the question is now, what if I play around with the settings? So what if the radius is more? And what it does basically is make it look more and more rounded. But again, there's a point at which it looks totally stupid and a point at which it looks really good. What does soften do? It just softens the highlights. I prefer the highlights to be standing out really good. And you can play around with all these things. I wonder what shininess does. Yep, makes it dull, makes it shiny. Not too shiny though. There we go. So you can play around with each of these things till you get it right. And if I had that effect and I also added a wee bit of outer shadow, I'm quite liking this. Now it stayed on the 3D effect, so I need to click there to get the shadow. And if I change my colour to something else, there we go. Something grey, probably best. And that is how you go about doing all your text. So the steps are in the book. You should end up with about 4 texts and showing how you take it from plain and boring to something that looks really professional. I'd like you all to have a go at that now, and we will stop this video at that. Thank you.